You've been seeing it in your mind, again and again. You close your eyes, feel into it, visualize your future self with clarity. You imagine the version of life you know is possible, and for a moment, it feels close, tangible, real. But then, nothing changes. Or maybe there's a small sign, a shift, a whisper of hope, only to fade. The job doesn't come, the relationship feels the same, the inner doubt resurfaces, and you wonder, why does something that feels so right stay just out of reach? Here's the truth. Most people never tell you. Mental images don't create your reality. Your vibrational frequency does. There's a critical difference between imagining a better life and energetically embodying the version of you who naturally lives that life. Visualization is powerful, but it's only one piece. What shapes your world isn't what you picture during meditation, but the energy you carry when you open your eyes and walk back into your day. The quantum field doesn't respond to effort, it responds to alignment. Not to how much you want something, but to how deeply you've become the version of you who already has it. Not to your words, but to the silent frequency you emit through your breath, your emotions, your decisions. You can't fool the universe with surface-level rituals if your inner state is still broadcasting fear, doubt, and lack. And this is why so many people feel stuck in cycles of almost manifesting. They're thinking the right thoughts, visualizing the right outcomes, but carrying a frequency of waiting, separation, and not yet. The more they focus on the future, the more they reinforce the feeling that it's not here now. And the quantum field reflects exactly that. But something shifts the moment you stop chasing. When you stop asking, when will it come? And start asking, what would it feel like to already be that version of me? Everything changes. Because in that moment, you stop observing a distant dream and begin broadcasting the signal of fulfillment. That signal, the one that doesn't yearn, doesn't rush, doesn't question, is magnetic. It carries stillness. It carries certainty. And the field responds not out of favor, but out of resonance. Because when your inner world and your imagined future speak the same frequency, there's nothing to wait for. You've already become the portal through which that version of reality appears. You've probably said the affirmations. You've written the intentions. You've spoken your goals out loud, hoping the universe would hear you, that your words would somehow signal the life you want. But here's what no one tells you. The quantum field doesn't respond to language. It doesn't respond to what you say. It doesn't even respond to what you consciously think. It responds to one thing only: your vibration. You see, the universe isn't sitting somewhere with a checklist, sorting out who said the most affirmations or meditated for the longest. It's not counting how many vision boards you've made. It's not measuring how desperately you want something. It's reading the energetic frequency you are consistently broadcasting, with or without your awareness. And that frequency, your signal, isn't shaped by what you post on social media or what you say in your morning routine. It's being transmitted 24/7 through your emotions, your subconscious expectations, your body language, your tone, and even your breath. The universe isn't responding to your performance. It's responding to your internal coherence. Let's break it down. Every human being has an electromagnetic field, a measurable one. Your heart and your brain emit signals. These signals carry information, and that information tells the quantum field what you're available for, what you believe is safe, what you expect without even realizing it. The more consistent that signal is, the more stable the reality that forms around you. This is why someone can say, "I am abundant," and still live in scarcity. Why someone can pray for love and still attract disconnection. Why someone can want success but keep sabotaging opportunities. It's not about what they want. It's about what they're vibrating. Because the quantum field is not linear. It's not moral. It's not emotional in the way humans are. It doesn't reward good people or punish bad ones. It doesn't care about how hard you're trying. It simply mirrors back whatever frequency you hold most dominantly. That frequency comes from your state of being, not a fleeting moment of clarity, but the baseline energy you return to again and again. That's what gets interpreted. That's what becomes your point of attraction. That's what shapes the version of reality you collapse into form. So let's be honest. What are you actually emitting? You may think you're aligned with abundance, but if your dominant emotion is worry, the field will reflect limitation. You may speak about attracting love, but if your body still holds the residue of past betrayal, you're vibrating protection. not openness. You may visualize your dream career, but if you deep down don't feel worthy of success, the field won't argue with you. It will just respond with silence. And this is the difference between conscious intention and energetic readiness. You can consciously want something and still not be a vibrational match for it. The quantum field is listening not to your voice, but to your entire system. But here's the good news. Vibration is malleable. Your signal isn't fixed. It's being shaped moment to moment by what you focus on, how you breathe, what stories you believe, and what emotions you practice. When you begin to deliberately shift your internal state, not just on the surface but deeply, from the nervous system up, the field starts to shift with you. Slowly at first, subtly, then powerfully, then undeniably. It begins with presence, with honesty, with the courage to ask, what signal have I been sending, without knowing, and what version of me would carry the frequency of the life I say I want. Because when you begin to feel into that version, the one who trusts, the one who receives, the one who no longer hustles to prove, your field reorganizes. You move from concept to congruence, from desire to alignment. You're no longer trying to convince the universe. You're simply resonating with a timeline where what you've been chasing already belongs to you. So stop asking for things to happen. Start becoming the person to whom those things naturally arrive. The field has no choice but to respond. You've been taught to look for proof, to wait for the external validation before believing, to see the results first, and then feel worthy, safe or certain. But in quantum creation, this logic is completely reversed. In the realm of energy, the inner evidence must come first. You don't experience the reality and then become the person who lives it. You become the person first, and then the reality must follow. It's not cause and effect, it's cause as alignment. The version of you who has everything you want already exists, not as a metaphor, but as a potential timeline encoded in the quantum field. And that version doesn't wait for proof. It carries proof internally, through state of being, emotion, expectation, and energetic posture. So if you're still waiting to feel confident until someone validates you, or waiting to feel secure until money arrives, or waiting to feel chosen until love shows up, you're deferring your frequency. And the field will mirror exactly that waiting energy back to you. Think of it like this. Reality is not a reward system. It's a mirror, one that reflects what you are consistently broadcasting, not what you're hoping for. You can't stand in front of a mirror and say, "Smile, so I'll smile." It only works the other way around. You smile first, and then the reflection returns it. The same is true with abundance, with healing, with love, with success. You don't wait to feel it when it comes. You begin generating the internal resonance now, and the field collapses into alignment with that vibration. But here's what most people miss. Internal evidence isn't pretending. It's not delusion. It's not slapping affirmations on top of anxiety. It's about training your nervous system to experience a new state before external conditions justify it. That's why true quantum creation requires emotional maturity, energetic awareness, and somatic practice, not just vision boards and scripting. Because the body is the interface, your nervous system is the bridge. And if your body is still addicted to survival emotions, like fear, shame, guilt, scarcity, it will override your conscious intentions every single time. That's why some people meditate for years and feel no change. Because even though the mind is on board, the body is still anchored in the frequency of the past, still looping in old emotion, still scanning for danger, still broadcasting, "I'm not safe, I'm not ready, it's not coming." And the quantum field, it responds faithfully to that signal. So what do? You create internal evidence. You build a felt sense of the new timeline. You practice being the person who already lives that future, not just thinking about it, but emotionally, biologically, energetically embodying it. That means you feel gratitude before the thing arrives. You anchor into trust before there's visible reason. You breathe like someone who's already free. You walk like someone who knows it's done. You speak from fulfillment, not from absence. It's not about faking confidence. It's about regulating your system into a new identity, over and over again, until your internal signal becomes more dominant than your old programming. This is what neuroscience calls neuroplasticity, the process by which new emotional states rewire the brain and new behaviors install a new baseline. And it's what quantum physics describes as collapsing a new potential, when the observer, through consistent alignment, collapses the timeline that matches their vibrational signature. So ask yourself, what version of me would no longer need proof? What would it look like if I believed the new reality before it arrived? How would I feel, breathe, move, and speak if I already had what I say I'm waiting for? Because the moment you stop looking outward for permission to feel safe, confident, or free, and begin generating those feelings from the inside, you no longer chase your future, you become a match for it. And that's when the universe stops reflecting the old version of you and starts responding to the one you've already become. You've likely heard the phrase, live as if it's already yours. It's repeated in manifestation teachings, motivational speeches, spiritual texts, and for good reason. It contains a deep truth. But there's a subtle misunderstanding that causes many people to struggle. They take as if to mean pretend, and pretending in the quantum world doesn't carry power. In fact, it repels the very future you're trying to create. Let's be clear, the quantum field is not responding to your performance. It doesn't care how convincing your affirmations sound. It doesn't react to whether you look confident on the outside. It responds to your frequency, your internal congruence. The level of alignment between who you say you are and what you truly believe, feel, and emit energetically. Living as if is not about faking confidence, smiling through pain, or speaking in forced positivity. It's about embodying the emotional and energetic signature of the version of you who already exists in the timeline you're calling in. There's a massive difference between acting as if from hope and acting as if from knowing. The former says, I hope if I act like I have it, maybe the universe will give it to me. The latter says, I know it's already mine. I am simply choosing to exist in alignment with that version now. That shift in awareness changes everything. When you operate from hope, your frequency is still rooted in lack. You're acting as if something is true, while internally believing it isn't. This creates vibrational conflict, and the field picks up on it instantly. It hears, I don't have this yet, and so it mirrors that truth back. But when you operate from alignment, when your body, emotions, and subconscious identity are in coherence, you're not pretending. You're matching, you're becoming a living signal of the future you're choosing. The quantum field responds to identity, not intention alone. So if you want to collapse the version of reality you've been envisioning, you must stop trying to get it and start being the person who naturally lives in it. That means, you don't wait to feel grateful, you live in gratitude now. You don't wait for external success to feel confident, you ground into your inner worth now. You don't look to others to validate your identity, you validate it through consistent embodiment. This is what as if truly means, to remember that the future you're reaching for is already real in the field, and your job is not to chase it, but to resonate with it right now. But here's what makes this both powerful and subtle. You cannot live as if from a place of tension, urgency, or desperation. You must live from a place of non-attachment, because true embodiment doesn't need to force reality to change. It knows that reality is already adjusting to meet its frequency. You move with peace, not pressure. You speak with clarity, not control. You make decisions not out of fear of missing out, but from a calm awareness of what already aligns with who you've become. You no longer seek proof. You are the proof, because your state of being is your message to the field, and when you live as if in integrity, the field responds with precision. So how do you stay in that state without falling into performance? By choosing emotional honesty over emotional avoidance. You don't ignore fear, you observe it, and stay aligned anyway. You don't suppress doubt, you witness it without feeding it. You don't bypass struggle, you soften into your power, even when it's uncomfortable. You treat your energy like sacred territory, and every breath, every word, every posture becomes a small act of reinforcement. Not because you're trying to impress the universe, but because this is simply how your authentic self lives. Over time, the external world will adjust. You won't need to force change. You'll simply become energetically incompatible with your old timeline. And the people, opportunities, and experiences that matched your old frequency will fall away, making room for what resonates with your now. So ask yourself daily, What version of me would effortlessly live this life? What does that version believe, feel, and choose right now? And what small shift can I make today to begin being them, not just visualizing them? Because the quantum field isn't waiting on your perfect plan. It's responding to your presence. And the more consistently you live as if, with truth, peace, and alignment, the faster your imagined life becomes your lived one. You keep seeing the same numbers, 11, 11, 777, 333, or maybe the same word shows up in unexpected places. A name, a symbol, a phrase you were just thinking about suddenly appears on a billboard, a license plate, a passing conversation. At first it feels like coincidence, but then it keeps happening, again and again. These moments aren't accidents, they're echoes. What you're experiencing is resonance, not with the outer world but with your own vibrational signal. The universe speaks through frequency, and one of its most elegant tools for communication is synchronicity. Let's be clear, repeating numbers and random signs are not magic. They're feedback loops from the quantum field. They're signals that your internal state, your thoughts, your emotions, your attention, has reached a level of coherence with a new potential timeline. And the field, like a mirror, begins reflecting that alignment through patterns you can perceive. Why numbers? Because numbers are one of the most universal, neutral, and precise ways the field can grab your attention without language. You might be on the verge of a shift, holding a new energetic frequency for the first time in days or weeks, and suddenly, 1111 shows up as if to say, stay here. You're tuning in, you're remembering. Synchronicities aren't there to give you answers, they're there to reflect back your awareness. They say more about the observer than the event. In fact, the moment you begin consistently seeing synchronicities is often the moment your inner world is becoming energetically ordered enough for the field to respond in patterns. It means your signal has stabilized, even slightly, and the quantum matrix is signaling you're being heard. But here's what most people miss. Seeing signs is not the goal, it's the byproduct of inner alignment. You don't need to chase numbers, you don't need to interpret every feather or song lyric like it's a code. Because synchronicity isn't designed to prove something to you, it's designed to reflect the state you're already in. If you start relying on external signs to feel safe, you lose your center. But if you allow signs to simply confirm what you already know within, they become beautiful mirrors. The most powerful synchronicities don't just happen in your surroundings, they happen within you. A moment of deep clarity after confusion, a sudden calm where there used to be fear, a conversation that delivers the exact message your heart needed. A sense that time is bending around your energy, not the other way around. This is vibrational alignment in motion. Repeating numbers aren't lucky charms, they're energetic indicators that say, you're not living from memory right now, you're broadcasting something new. And when you honor that, when you stay with it, when you reinforce that vibration through conscious presence, you begin to collapse new experiences into form. That's when you notice opportunities appear that feel tailor-made for your intentions. People from another version of your life begin entering your space. Old patterns dissolve without effort. Flow becomes normal. Synchronicity is the universe whispering, you're remembering who you are. Not the wounded identity, not the conditioned self, but the one who came here knowing how to create, how to align, how to dance with energy. And once you start noticing these signs, not from need but from presence, you begin communing with reality, not reacting to it. So the next time you see 111 or hear that same message again, pause, not to overanalyze, but to feel, what am I being shown about my current frequency? What is this reflecting about who I'm becoming? Can I stay in this alignment long enough to let the new timeline stabilize? Because that's the real invitation, not to decode the sign, but to become the version of you for whom signs are simply confirmation. And the more you live that way, from resonance, not resistance, the more the quantum field speaks back in symbols, synchronicities, and serendipities that feel like destiny, but are actually just the mathematics of aligned consciousness. You've been taught that manifestation is about getting something you don't yet have, the house, the money, the love, the health. You've been conditioned to believe you must work toward it, visualize it, affirm it, attract it. as if it exists far away, and you are down here hoping it finally arrives. But here's the truth that shifts everything. Manifestation isn't about acquiring, it's about remembering. It's not a process of summoning something from outside yourself. It's a process of removing what blocks you from seeing that it's already available to you. Because in the quantum field, all possibilities already exist. Every version of you, rich, healed, free, fulfilled, is encoded as a vibrational signature. Your job is not to chase those timelines. Your job is to resonate with them, to align your frequency so precisely that they have no choice but to emerge into form. That's not magic. That's quantum reality. You're not calling something in, you're tuning into the version of you who has never been separate from it. Think of it like a radio. All stations exist simultaneously. The music you want is already playing. But if your dial is tuned to the wrong frequency, you won't hear it. You might even believe it doesn't exist, but the signal was always there. Manifestation works the same way. You don't create abundance by fighting scarcity. You don't create love by healing every wound first. You don't create freedom by working harder. You align with the identity, the emotion, the frequency of the version of you who is already whole, and through that resonance, your life begins to mirror that truth. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to achieve that identity instead of remembering it. They think, once I'm more healed, more disciplined, more deserving. But that story itself becomes the very thing keeping them out of alignment. Because the core identity that manifests with ease is not something you build, it's something you recover. It's the version of you beneath the conditioning, beneath the trauma, beneath the belief that you must do more to be enough. And every time you release an outdated belief or emotion that no longer serves, you clear space for that original frequency to rise again. This is the true nature of manifestation, not summoning something new, but becoming who you already were before the world told you to forget. And when you live from that knowing, when you stop striving to get and start resting in I already am, your entire energetic field shifts. You feel less urgency, less attachment. You become magnetic not because you're doing all the right things, but because your identity is now harmonized with your intention. And the quantum field doesn't care how hard you've worked. It doesn't tally effort points. It responds to who you're being, to what you believe is possible, to how deeply you trust what you can't yet see. This is why letting go is often more powerful than holding on. Why surrender out manifests strategy? Because when you release the chase, you return to your core signal, the one that says I am safe now, I am ready now, I am that now. And the moment that truth becomes embodied, not just as a thought but as a state of being, reality moves. Not because you forced it, but because the field has no choice but to match you. So stop asking how do I get this, and start asking who was I before I forgot I already had it. What would change if I remembered it now? How would I walk, speak, feel, breathe if I already lived this truth? Because the moment you remember, the moment you reclaim the identity that was never truly lost, you realize you don't need to attract the life of your dreams. You only need to return to the version of you who never doubted it was real. And from there, everything unfolds. Most people believe that identity is fixed, a personality trait, a childhood blueprint, a set of habits they inherited, and now must cope with. But identity isn't fixed, it's programmable. And even more importantly, it's reprogrammable. You are not the result of your past. You are the result of the repetition of your current state of being. Every day you are rehearsing a version of yourself into existence. You might not call it rehearsal, but that's what it is. Each time you wake up and feel anxious without questioning why, each time you say, I've always been like this, or that's just how I am, you are reinforcing a neurological, emotional, and energetic loop that becomes your identity. But here's the shift. The quantum field doesn't respond to your past-based identity. It responds to the identity you repeatedly inhabit in the present moment. This is where quantum rehearsal comes in, not as a concept, but as a conscious technology for transformation. Quantum rehearsal is the process of emotionally, neurologically, and energetically becoming the version of you that already exists in a parallel timeline, and doing it so consistently that your brain, body, and field begin to accept it as your default setting. It's not acting, it's not faking, it's installing, like rewriting software into the operating system of your nervous system. Let's break this down. Your brain is constantly changing, Through neuroplasticity, it can reorganize itself based on focused thought, new emotion, and repetition. This means you can train your brain to believe new beliefs. You can shift your emotional baseline. You can literally become a new energetic version of yourself, not over 10 years but in a matter of focused daily practice. But most people don't rehearse their future self. They rehearse their fears, their shame, their past. They replay the same emotional signatures day after day and wonder why nothing changes in their reality. Quantum rehearsal interrupts that loop. It invites you to wake up in the morning and rehearse the thoughts, feelings, and inner posture of the version of you who already lives the life you desire, even before there's evidence. Not as fantasy, but as frequency. You don't do this once and hope it sticks. You do it daily, like brushing your teeth, like warming up your voice before speaking. You become fluent in a new identity, and eventually it stops being practice. It becomes who you are. That's when people say, "You've changed." But really you just return to the version of you that was always there, beneath the programming. Quantum rehearsal is how you install identity change from the inside out. And here's the nuance most people miss. You can't just think new thoughts. You must feel them into your nervous system, because identity lives in the body, not the intellect. So your rehearsal must include emotional activation. What does abundance feel like? Embodiment. How would I stand, walk and breathe if I knew this reality was mine? Mental imagery. What does my future look like from the inside out? Energetic alignment. Am I matching the frequency or merely wishing for it? When you rehearse a new version of you, you're retraining your entire system. You're saying to your subconscious, "This is who we are now," and the quantum field, faithful as always, responds accordingly. Because reality doesn't manifest from effort. It manifests from identity confirmation. Think of actors rehearsing a role. They don't just memorize lines. They internalize the rhythm, the emotion, the psychology of the character, until it becomes second nature. That's what you're doing with your future self, not mimicking them, becoming them. And eventually the external world begins to match. You'll walk into situations you used to fear and feel calm. You'll say no to things that used to trigger guilt. You'll hold boundaries you used to collapse, not because you tried, but because your baseline changed. And this is when manifestation becomes inevitable, because you're no longer vibrating from lack. You're no longer hoping something outside of you saves you. You are standing inside the identity of the version who doesn't chase results, because they already live them. So ask yourself, what identity am I currently rehearsing, consciously or unconsciously? What would it feel like to step into a new version of me today? And how committed am I to becoming that person before the world shows me proof? Because the moment your internal rehearsal becomes stronger than your external programming, your new identity becomes undeniable to your nervous system, your environment, and to the quantum field itself. And from that moment forward, your future isn't something you're waiting on. It's something you're living into now. We're conditioned to believe that power looks loud, that momentum feels urgent, that manifestation requires constant activity, intense emotion, or non-stop affirmations. But in the quantum world, the highest creative frequency isn't force, it's stillness. Emotional stillness is not numbness, it's not passivity, it's not detachment from life. In fact, it's the opposite. It's full presence, it's regulated calm. It's the place where creation begins, not from need, but from resonance. Let's be honest, most people are addicted to chaos, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Their nervous systems have been wired from years of fight or flight, hypervigilance, and overstimulation. So when silence arrives, it feels unfamiliar, sometimes even threatening. But here's the paradox. The reality you're trying to manifest can only land in a system that's stable enough to receive it. Think of it like this. If your energy field is erratic, if your emotions are in constant flux, swinging between hope and despair, doubt and control, the signal you're sending is scrambled. The quantum field can't lock in a frequency that keeps shifting every few hours. But when you settle into stillness, emotionally, vibrationally, you become like a clear channel. Your energy field stabilizes, and that stability becomes magnetic. Stillness is coherence, and coherence is what the field responds to with precision. This doesn't mean you should never feel emotions. It means you stop being ruled by them. You feel the emotion fully, without reacting to it, without believing it defines you. You become the observer, not the reactor, and that is power, because once you learn to sit with discomfort without collapsing, to allow fear without feeding it, to remain steady even as the old self tries to pull you back, you become energetically sovereign. That's what emotional stillness offers, a space where you are no longer chasing safety from the outside, because you've remembered that it lives within you. From that place, you stop pushing reality to change. You stop bargaining with the universe. You stop swinging between extremes, because you know that everything you've been wanting already exists in the timeline you're now aligned with. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it's undisturbed focus. It's what monks cultivate in meditation, what artists tap into in flow state, what the greatest athletes find in the split second before a perfect shot. Stillness isn't weak, it's potent presence, and energetically, it says to the field, I already have it. I don't need to force it. I am the frequency of peace, and peace is the fertile soil of all creation. You don't need to scream at the universe with affirmations. You don't need to visualize harder. You need to settle into the frequency that matches the life you're calling in. Stillness allows that. But here's the challenge. Most people resist stillness because it reveals what's underneath their noise. The moment the mind quiets, unprocessed emotions surface, old stories arise. The nervous system starts scanning for the chaos it's addicted to. And this is where your work begins. Instead of running from the silence, you breathe into it. Instead of distracting yourself, you sit with the discomfort and realize it passes. Instead of needing to do, you allow yourself to be, and realize that's where all doing should come from. Stillness is not the reward, it's the foundation. You don't become still after you're healed, abundant, or safe. You become healed, abundant, and safe through practicing stillness. And in that state, life becomes responsive, synchronicities increase, opportunities align, old patterns dissolve without being analyzed. You say less and attract more. You do less and receive more. Because your frequency is clear, stable, and undeniable. So ask yourself, where am I addicted to inner chaos? Where do I still believe that movement equals progress? Can I learn to hold space for silence without rushing to fill it? Because when you do, when stillness becomes your home, you're no longer hoping reality will shift. You are already holding the energy of the shift, and from there, manifestation becomes a byproduct, not a struggle. Remember, emotional stillness is the most fertile ground for quantum creation. When the noise quiets, the signal gets strong, and that signal, pure and unwavering, is the one the universe cannot ignore. There comes a moment in your inner journey when you stop asking, how do I change my life? And instead you begin asking, what version of reality am I consistently observing into existence? Because what if the reason nothing is changing isn't because you aren't visualizing enough or working hard enough, but because you're still observing your life from the eyes of your old identity? In quantum terms, observation is creation, not metaphorically, literally. Every moment, you are collapsing infinite timelines into one concrete reality, not by effort, not by wishful thinking, but by what you choose to focus on, believe in, emotionally respond to, and expect as normal. That's what it means to be the observer, not a passive watcher of reality, but the precise architect of what becomes real. Here's what most people miss. You're already rehearsing a version of reality. Right now, every day, every repeated thought, every familiar emotional response, every unconscious reaction is a rehearsal, and the quantum field is listening, not to your desires, but to your dominant signal. So if you keep expecting disappointment, you'll rehearse timelines of frustration. If you keep identifying with fear, you'll collapse realities that validate it. If you keep scanning for betrayal, the field will find ways to fulfill that expectation. It's not punishment, it's precision. Your observation is not neutral, it's directive. It tells the quantum field, this is who I am, this is what's real for me. And the field says, okay, as you wish. But here's the miracle. You can choose a new timeline, not by forcing your outer world to change, but by rehearsing a new inner posture until it becomes your energetic default. That's the essence of quantum rehearsal. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're remembering the version of you that already exists, whole, empowered, peaceful, and you are choosing to make that identity familiar through repetition. You don't wait to feel worthy when life improves. You become the version who already feels worthy, and life adjusts accordingly. You rehearse confidence, not arrogance. You rehearse peace, not passivity. You rehearse clarity, not control. Every breath, every choice, every thought is a cue, a micro vote for which version of you, and which version of reality, becomes more real. This is not about denying your emotions. It's about becoming conscious of how often you're observing from survival, how often your gaze is fixed on what's not working, and how deeply your nervous system has made the old identity feel like home. But now you know, home is programmable. Your body, your brain, your energy field are not locked. They're malleable, neuroplastic, responsive, and the moment you begin rehearsing from the perspective of the future you, breathing like them, thinking like them, making decisions as they would, the quantum field has no choice but to reflect that new timeline into physical form. It's not a question of if, it's a matter of consistency, because what you practice, you embody, and what you embody, the universe confirms. So pause and ask yourself, what future have I been unconsciously rehearsing? What would it feel like to become the version of me who already lives what I keep asking for? Can I commit to showing up, not as the person who hopes it will happen, but as the one for whom it's already true? Because when you rehearse your future as a lived identity, you no longer chase timelines. You become the anchor point for the timeline to find you. You're no longer reacting, you're broadcasting. No longer needing signs, you are the sign. And in that place of inner coherence, quiet power, and stabilized observation, reality bends. Not because you forced it, but because it was always waiting for you to remember. You are not the product of your past. You are the result of the reality you choose to repeatedly observe into existence. And that right now is entirely up to you. So now the question isn't whether you're manifesting, because you always are. The question is, what timeline are you currently observing into existence? And is it the one you truly want to live in? Because everything you've just heard about frequency, identity, rehearsal, and observation isn't theory. It's a blueprint for conscious reality design. You're no longer here to wait for your external world to give you permission to change. You're here to remember that the field responds to you, to your coherence, to your clarity, to your willingness to stop waiting and start being. From this moment forward, you're not just a thinker or a dreamer, you're the observer, you're the director, you're the chooser. And the more you anchor into that truth, not as a performance but as a practice, the more life will start echoing back the version of reality that's been waiting for you to remember it all along. In the comments below, I invite you to write, I choose my timeline. Let this be more than a comment. Let it be a declaration, a conscious signal to yourself and to the field that you're no longer observing from the past. You're observing from the version of you who knows exactly who they are and where they're headed. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who's ready to wake up to their power. And remember, you don't have to force anything. You just have to align, rehearse, observe, and let the field do what it always does, respond. Thank you for being here, for showing up, and for doing this deep inner work. Until next time, stay anchored, stay aware, and stay in the frequency of your future. We'll meet again, in the timeline you've already chosen.